Hello, my name is Peter, and today I will be talking about bias in news media. Biases are everywhere. They're created by every person's unique life experience. They influence everything about our preferences, perceptions, and judgments of the people, things, and ideas we encounter every day. While natural as an individual, there's a certain level of expectation that key institutions of society rise above these personal biases. Organizations such as government, religion, and education are supposed to serve everyone impartially and fairly. One institution in particular, the news, stands distinct from the others, as in a perfect world it serves as a watchdog for the public, keeping the other powers accountable. At its best, the press is supposed to be a bastion of objectivity, fairness, and truth. Unfortunately, reality often falls short of that ideal. John Pavlik and Sean McIntosh on page 52 of their book Converging Media go as far as to say as many question this very possibility when discussing objectivity and balance in journalism. Looking at modern news media, it is easy to see where this opinion comes from. Titanic news corporations such as Fox News and CNN are routinely accused of biases that align with certain political and ideological agendas. To see if this is true, I will be analyzing the Fox News article, "Rioting, Looting Linked to George Floyd Protests Leaves Trails of Destruction Across American Cities," written by Greg Norman and published June 1st, 2020. This article is written about and during a particularly charged time in American history, the protests following the killing of George Floyd at the hands of officers from the Minneapolis Police Department. These protests were in opposition to police brutality and systemic racism and spawned many political and social movements such as Black Lives Matter. They lasted for weeks in some locations and culminated into one of, if not the largest social justice movement in US and global history. Many of these demonstrations were peaceful, but there were incidents of rioting and other violent public disturbances. The first and most obvious indication of the bias found in this article is its very title. The emotionally charged phrase "trail of destruction" clearly falls into the realm of sensationalism. This term, first made famous by the two newspaper titans Joseph Pulitzer and William Randolph Hearst, is characterized by vivid or exaggerated details of an event. This is done in hopes of invoking some sort of emotion-based response from an audience. From the onset, the negative feelings a person would experience from the dramatic language found in the title of this article make the reader approach the content from a mindset of disapproval. The largest instance of bias within this article has to do with how these events are being framed. Framing, as explained by Pavlik and McIntosh on page 75, is the filter we use in our communication to explain our reality, and it greatly influences how a message is perceived. In this article, the protests are being framed almost entirely as criminal acts. Quotes such as, "A Sunday afternoon of mostly peaceful protest in Boston made a turn for worse overnight when protesters clashed with officers, throwing rocks, breaking into several stores, and lighting a police vehicle on fire," are just one of several examples highlighting the violent exceptions to the massive number of peaceful demonstrations that were taking place. Framing, when distilled to its essence, largely comes down to simple word choices: mobs versus protesters, chaos versus dissent. And the same article could have widely different biases if only a couple words are swapped for something else. Literary techniques like sensationalism and framing aside, when viewed in its totality, this article is a clear example of agenda setting. This concept is ultimately the manifestation of bias in media. It is based on how prominently and in what light issues and events are presented. Because the news is the one presenting the information, the news is ultimately what decides what is and is not important. In this case, it was decided that destruction of property and other unlawful acts were more important than the events that caused the protests in the first place. As demonstrated in this article, bias is both extremely prevalent and blatant in mass media today. That realization then begs the question as to why. What purpose does it serve? These purposes were the main ideas presented in the book Manufacturing Consent by Noam Chomsky and Edward Herman. They concluded that, in contrast to their idealized form, news media are not there for the betterment of the public. Al Jazeera English's video, Noam Chomsky, The 5 Filters of Mass Media Machine, The Listening Post, said it more succinctly at 49 seconds as, quote, "It blasted apart the notion that the media acts as a check on political power." End quote. According to them, at worst, the media is so intertwined with other institutions as to be considered inseparable, and at best, they are entirely self-serving organizations. Only with this thought and careful analysis of communication can narratives be challenged and true information be gleaned from the news. Thank you very much.